Hello, Facebook. It's Beto here, your daily divinity coach, here for episode 3 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival, which takes place here on Facebook Live every Sunday, beginning at 11:30 a.m. on the East Coast, so Eastern Standard Time, and 8:30 a.m. on the Pacific Standard Time, or the West Coast. So again, this is Beto here, your daily divinity coach, with episode number 3 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival, here on Facebook Live. Takes place every Sunday, starting at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the East Coast, actually where I'm at, here in Boston, and 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the West Coast. So we're just going to give a little time for people to go ahead and join. Episode number 3 this week. I see Emma Lou joined. Yay! This week, episode number 3 is entitled How to Manifest Immortality. I get a lot of questions about immortality. What do I mean by immortality? Asking for practical tips on how to manifest immortality. So we'll be talking about all of that today. So again, episode number 3 today, Sunday, June 28th. Beto here, your daily divinity coach, presenting how to manifest immortality. Here in my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival. So we're just going to go ahead and give a little bit more time for some more folk to join. Look forward to discussing immortality with you and seeing where this is going to take us. Excited about this. This is going to be exciting. I've already done 2 other episodes, and again, this is the 3rd episode of the weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival, here on Facebook Live. So going forward, so that you know, again, I'm here every Sunday, beginning at 11:30 a.m. on the East Coast and 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So just wanted to get started with talking. I'm going to go ahead and take my glasses off now. So wanted to go ahead and get started by talking about what I don't mean about immortality. I frequently get questions like, Beto, when you speak of immortality, do you mean vampires, the undead, vampire slayers? No. I do not speak of vampires. I do not speak of vampire slayers. I do not speak of the undead. That's not at all what I mean by immortality. When I talk about immortality, I speak of immortality from a spiritual perspective. So to give an example of Elijah, the great teacher, the man from Nazareth that folk call Jesus, some refer to as a prophet, others a Messiah or the Savior. I refer to as the great teacher. Jesus ascending to heaven alive. That's an example of immortality, and that's an example of what I'm talking about. So again, not talking about the undead, not talking about vampires or vampire slayers. Another question I get, Beto, when you talk about immortality, are you talking about freezing corpses like in a cryogenic chamber? No. I don't endorse cryogenic chambers. I'm not sponsored by any company that produces them or sells them. No, that is not at all what I mean by manifesting immortality. So, no. I've had others ask, Beto, when you talk about manifesting immortality, do you mean like leaving a legacy? Like Elvis Presley left us all these movies and these I guess songs and whatnot. Others people leave legacies like bequests, right? They bequest money and land and other things to institutions like universities or churches. So no, I do not mean leaving a legacy. Although I don't, I'm not saying don't do that if you have the possibility, if you have the potential and the desire to do that. But that's not what I mean by manifesting immortality. So again, just to review, I'm not talking about the undead, vampires or vampire slayers when I say manifesting immortality. I'm not talking about generational legacy when I speak of manifesting immortality, and I'm not talking about cryogenic chambers and freezing corpses, so you can get that out of your head. I'm also not talking about what a lot of born again, I guess, would be the saying. I don't know if that's still relevant everywhere, but a lot of Christian ministers talk about you die physically and then your spirit lives eternally as immortality, a possibility of immortality. No, that's not what I talk about. So no physical death. I believe physical death is an untruth. Okay, so when I talk about immortality, there's nothing to do with physical death. Okay, so I want to keep that in mind, because for me, physical death is an untruth. So again, what I don't mean when I speak of immortality. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a story, and then we'll start talking about what I do mean when I speak of immortality. And I gave a hint already. So I'm going to start with the story. So I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. And when I was a kid, there was a professional soccer team there in the Bay Area. And this soccer team was known as the Earthquakes. That soccer team disbanded and actually formed again, but under a different professional soccer organization. Now it's the Major League Soccer. Before it was something else. So the Earthquakes is actually playing again there in the Bay Area. And one of my best friends, Victor, actually has season tickets. But when I was a kid, the original Earthquakes were playing, and my father's employer was a sponsor, and we'd get tickets. As a family, we'd go to watch the professional soccer. I know I have folk from Europe and other places that watch my shows. So by soccer, American soccer, I mean European soccer, or European football, excuse me. So we'd go to these games, and I was 5, 6 years old, and we'd be there as a family, and there was a cheerleader, a male cheerleader by the name of Crazy George. And Crazy George, I believe it was a drum he had, and he'd beat his drum, boom, boom, and he'd get us all to do these European football chants, these soccer chants. I can't remember exactly what the words are. Some of you, actually, there's a couple of you who've been to those games, I can see, who are joining us live who might remember. But anyhow, we'd chant, for the Earthquakes. And while we were chanting, we would do something very interesting. We would stomp our feet. Boom, 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 boom. All of us in the stadium would start stomping our feet, right? Boom, boom, boom. Basically marching in place, because there's somebody in front of you, there's somebody behind you. You're not moving, right? You're just marching in place. You're stomping your feet. Boom, 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 boom. And as we did this, as fans in the stadium would start to actually quake. It would start to move, it'd start to quake, boom, boom, and you'd feel this. And as a 5 or 6 year old child, I'm like, oh my God, we're actually creating an earthquake. We weren't creating an earthquake, but it felt like that, right? And that was the idea, because the team was called the Earthquakes. So by stomping, boom, 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 our feet, and marching in place, boom, 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 we could create this feeling of an earthquake taking place. So I say that to say, I give this example to say this, that there's according to the Mexica Azteca, right, the indigenous people of Mexico, the Maya, there's a prophecy. And the prophecy is this, that the fourth era of humankind will end by earthquakes. And this fourth era of Europe, what is European dominance, of white supremacy, will end in earthquakes, is actually what we're seeing right now. People are taking to the streets all across America, here in Boston, where I live, in LA, all across the U.S., but beyond the U.S., in New Zealand, Australia, all throughout Europe, all across the globe, people are taking to the streets, they're protesting, they're marching, they're stomping their feet, creating these earthquakes throughout culture to end racial injustice, to end white supremacy. That's what's actually happening in the streets. Boom, boom, boom. Earthquakes are taking place. This goes back to what the Mexica Azteca talked about, the Maya prophecy, that the fourth sun would end in earthquakes. So just to give you some histories, a refresher for some of you I know already know this, but for others this might be new information. The Mexica Azteca, incredible astronomers. In the modern world, they created the most complex calendar the world's seen. And they broke down humankind into 4 suns. So the current sun, which is ending now, right, the one of European dominance or white supremacy. There's also the one at the beginning, which was the era of Africa, of black man and woman, who were the first of humankind. We know that now through European scientists, but we didn't need European scientists to teach us that. We already knew that a long time ago. Ancient wisdom and taught us that. So that was the first era. Obviously, there's the era of Asia. There's the era of the Americas, right? The indigenous people of the Americas, including the Maya, the Mexica, the Azteca. So there's 4 suns, and the 4th sun is what we're seeing ending right now, and it's ending actually on the streets, right? Obviously, there are those that, they're trying to stall it or stop it, not the least of which is U.S. President Trump, who's, out to protect what he calls sacred statues or sacred. He refers to these monuments of white supremacy, right? These monuments of Albert Pike, who was a Confederate general. He refers to these Robert E. Lee, the statue of Robert E. Lee, right? These people who were all about protecting Southern culture in the United States, way of life, which was the practice of slavery, keeping African folk enslaved. They also genocide against Native Americans. So he's all about protecting these statues, these idols of white supremacy. But we know the divine is against idols, against idol worship, and for justice. So Trump's not going to be successful. That's not going to happen. We're going to move forward. The 4th sun's ending. So what happens in the 5th sun? What did the Maya, Azteca, Mexica teach us about the 5th sun? The 5th sun is the era when we learn to live in harmony with each other and with nature. And as somebody who protested back in '92 after the Rodney King verdicts there in California, I can attest that those protests were, for the most part, not multiracial like what we see today, the protests today. I was watching, I think the documentary is 92, about the 92 protest of the Rodney King riots, and the commentator was saying, oh, these protests are multiracial, and they pan to the audience, and it's basically blacks and Mexicans, it's brown and black folk, right? But today, when I go out to these protests and events, demonstrations, vigils, it is truly multicultural. There's Arab Americans, there's Asian Americans, Latinos, Dominicans, Haitians, Canadians, white folk. There's everything, literally, obviously African Americans, but also people from Africa, Somalia, Cape Verde. The whole world is taking to the streets, and it's incredible. It's truly multiracial from 92 to 2020. That's what took place. So again, this idea that we are going to learn to live in harmony with each other and with nature, and that's what the 5th sun is, and that's what we're seeing dawning right now, the dawning of the 5th sun. So what I want to do right now is just take a little bit step back, because this is episode 3 of my series, and in the first 2 episodes I talked a lot about justice and abundance, and this one I wanted to really focus on immortality. But before we do that, I want to take a step back and just review a couple of things. I give out these free bracelets. If you can see here, this first bracelet is the gray one on top, and it says Manifest Justice. The blue one is navy blue, and it says Manifest Abundance. And the black one says Manifest Immortality. If you haven't received your free set of bracelets, please reach out to me. Instant message me. I'll make sure to get a set of bracelets in the mail for you. They're meant to be worn as a set. I wear my 3 as a set, but you don't have to. If you just want to wear 1 or 2 at a time, that's fine. But again, they're meant to be worn like this, and reach out and I'll get them to you. So just to review what I mean by manifest justice. So manifest justice on the foundational level is exactly what we're seeing right now in the streets. It's manifesting social justice, ending racial injustice, ending economic injustice. So it's manifesting social justice. On the higher order of things, what I mean by manifesting justice is the words of Jesus, referring to the words of Jesus of Nazareth, right? The person I refer to as the great teacher. Others might refer to Jesus as the Messiah or the prophet. Others as a prophet. But anyhow, so the great teacher talked about the first being last and the last being first. Or in other words, the meek shall inherit the earth. So that's the higher level order. So when we start actually manifesting immortality, that's actually what we're going to see. The first being last and the last being first. Things are going to change. Things are going to totally change. The meek inheriting the earth, right? How many meek people do you see inheriting the earth right now? It's the narcissists. A lot of narcissists are inheriting the earth. Not all, but for the most part, these aren't meek people that are inheriting the earth right now. But that's all going to change in the 5th sun. The second band here, manifest abundance. What I mean by manifest abundance, 2 things again. Foundationally, manifest abundance is about the law of attraction. are what my mom used to call speaking your desires into existence. She used to say, Mijo, speak your desires. Mijo means my son in Spanish. Mijo, speak your desires into existence. So that's the lie, from the time I was 10, 11 years old, she would say this to me. But the real idea when you look at ancient wisdom and ancient texts is this, that the divine created birds in the air. And the birds in the air don't worry and stress, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to pay? No. They trust that their creator, right, that the divine God, Allah, the universe, so on and so forth, is going to provide, right? They're going to be able to attract what they need to survive and thrive. They're going to be able to attract food and whatnot, water, so that they can go forward. So it's that idea that we can attract what we need. Because we're created in the image of the divine, and the divine is love, and the divine loves us, so the divine is going to provide for us. So it's that idea that we can attract that. But of course, we can't take that by itself, because there needs to be justice too, right? If you're George Floyd, if you're Breonna Taylor, if you're Ahmaud Arbery, you need justice, right? Justice needs to prevail for abundance to be able to manifest. So justice is primary. I always start with justice. So beware if you're, listening to preachers and in churches where they're only discussing abundance. Just beware, because that can lead to some mental health issues and other things, because you have to take justice into account. How am I, as a divinity coach, going to coach a young person in an ICE facility, a young person locked in a cage for no better reason than their parents crossed the border looking for a better life? No, justice needs to prevail first before I can coach that person to abundance. So justice first. So again, back to abundance. Number one, foundationally, law of attraction, right? Speaking your desires into existence personally. But the higher level, going back to the Mexica Azteca philosophy, is about living in harmony with each other and with nature, and so that we can attain the peace that surpasseth all understanding. So that's the ancient text, right? The ancient text talks about the peace that surpasseth all understanding. That's why harmony is so important, because if there's violence going on in the streets and people are shooting at each other and all this crazy stuff is going on, how can you have peace? You're going to end up, even if you have material wealth, even if you have abundance, you're going to end up like these multimillionaires and these billionaires, secluded in these homes away from the people, right, with these security systems and all this stuff. They don't have peace. They have security systems. That's what they have. You can't buy the peace that surpasses all understanding with the security system. Two totally different things. Muhammad Ali, the greatest boxer of all time, did not hide from the people, right? He did not hide from the people. He was amongst the people. We have photos of him in Compton buying ice cream for the kids, talking to the kids, right, laughing and whatnot. Muhammad Ali, he was interviewed, and they asked him about bodyguards, if he had a bodyguard. Muhammad Ali said, I have the same bodyguard as you. My bodyguard is God, Allah. See, Muhammad Ali did not need a bodyguard because he had peace. He understood that God was his protector. Allah was his protector. The divine was his protector. The universe was his protector. So that's abundance, the peace that surpasseth all understanding. Foundationally, the law of attraction, yes, speaking your desires into existence, but the higher level order there is living in harmony with each other in nature and speaking your desires into existence. Now moving on to manifest immortality. What do I mean by manifest immortality? I mean two things. Foundationally, I mean reversing or stopping the aging process. Another way to say that is manifesting youthfulness. So that's foundational. And then the higher order of manifesting immortality is this idea of defying death, of ascending to heaven alive. Beto, who's done it? That's a question I get all the time. Who's done it? Who's ascended to heaven alive? Who's defied physical death? Well, obviously the great teacher, we've already talked about that. The great teacher did it. But even before the great teacher, there are 8 others in ancient texts, in the Hebrew text, that did it. Accounts of Elijah, for example. Elijah ascended to heaven alive. Elijah did not incur this untruth of physical death. In Jainism, religion in India, accounts of many spiritual leaders who lived millenniums right? The Hebrew text talks about Noah, who lived more than 900 years, and 6 others that lived more than 900 years. But in Jainism, they have accounts of spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers living millenniums before ascending to heaven alive. So that's what I mean when I talk about immortality. This idea of not incurring physical death, because physical death is an untruth, but ascending to heaven alive. That's the higher level, older thinking. But again, foundationally, it's this idea of stopping or reversing the aging process. And now I'll give you some examples and some tips. So an example, Prince, the musical artist. During his life, Prince at one point stopped celebrating birthdays. 10 years later, during an interview, Prince said, "Look at me now and look at photos of how I looked 10 years ago. I look the same. I stopped the aging process because I stopped celebrating birthdays. I stopped counting the days, and I started living in the moment." So there's an example. Our bodies are made up of stardust. Our minds we have brain plasticity. We can do this. It's not something that's not possible, not attainable. Prince did it. Stardust. So I had somebody say to me the other day, "Beto, yeah, no, that sounds great, manifesting immortality, but I don't want to be manifesting immortality and living to be 900 years, 1,000 years old, and my body hurts, and I'm I'm feeling old and all this kind of stuff." No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that you can live to be 900 or 1,000 years old. This whole idea of an 80 or 100-year lifespan is ridiculous. You can live to be, even thousands of years old and manifest youthfulness. Do you understand what I'm saying? Our bodies are stardust. Our bodies, there's dust of stars that are millions, billions, even trillions years old in us. Not only that, each and every one of us has dust of stars that were there at the beginning of the universe. That's inside us. And because we're stardust, our bodies can regenerate themselves. We can become young again. We can manifest youthfulness throughout our entire lifespan, and not 80, 100 years, 500 years, 900 years, 1,000 years, millenniums. We can do that. That's what our bodies are made to do. Our bodies aren't made to age. So why do they age? They age because we speak it into existence. We say things like, the TSA agent at Philadelphia said to me when she was looking at my ID and flattering me because I look, young compared to my government-issued birth date. She said, "Wow, you look so young. Thank you, but we all grow old and die." You know what I told her? I said, "No, ma'am, not I." She looked at me bewildered, obviously, because she never seen an immortal before. She never heard those words before. But that's the idea, is that the reason we get old and die is because we speak it into existence. So, helpful tip number 1. If you have an idea in your head, like, old dogs can't learn new tricks, that's an untruth. Curse that thought. Like my boxing coach Wasset says, old dogs can learn new tricks. Right? And I would just say dogs can learn new tricks because I don't like that word old. I don't want to entertain that word. But again, referring to my boxing coach, he would say old dogs can learn new tricks. And he's right. Brain plasticity proves that we can learn new things at any age. At any age, we can learn new things. That's what brain plasticity shows. Old dogs can learn new tricks, or dogs can learn new tricks at any age, or however old they might be. That, and us being the dogs in this example. But that's the idea. So, old dogs can't learn new tricks. Curse that thought. We all grow old and die. Curse that thought. Life is short. Curse that thought. So all those negative thoughts, curse them. Don't entertain them in the brain. And definitely don't let them go out of your mouth. So that's number 1. Number 2, so thoughts, words. If, for example, next time you're in front of the mirror, tell yourself, "I am eternal youth, I manifest youthfulness, and I manifest immortality." Start speaking these things. When I turned 50, and I was only 50 for one day because I started reversing aging, I decided to reverse aging. But when I turned 50, I decided to reverse aging, and I decided to go ahead and profess my immortality. And I started talking to people, close people that I trusted. I said, "I'm going to go ahead and do this." And they said, "Aren't you afraid that people are going to think you're crazy. I'm like, no. I said the opposite, because I practice brain plasticity. I de-traumatized my brain to this falsity, this untruth of physical death. I'm more sane than anybody who still believes in death. The people who believe in death, physical death, are the ones who are insane, are not physically right well, because they're still traumatized. We got to get them to de-traumatize. I said, so no, I'm not afraid of that. Sure enough, as I started professing my immortality, I started giving away these bands. Everybody wants them. Who doesn't want to manifest youthfulness? Who doesn't want to reverse or stop the aging process? Who doesn't want to ascend to heaven alive? So it's really, you got to get the words out. You got to get the words out. You're in front of the mirror. I manifest eternal youth. I manifest youthfulness. I manifest immortality. So that's helpful tip number 2. Moving on to helpful tip number 3. Going back to the example of Prince, the idea of birthdays. So this is action. Now we're taking action. So thoughts, words, actions. Action. If you're young, please, by all means, celebrate birthdays. They're fun, right? There's clowns, there's balloons, there's gifts, there's music. There might, if you're, Mexican like us, there's a kid's birthday, but the adults are dancing, and, there's food, there's all kinds of stuff going on. It's fun, right? So if you're young, continue to celebrate those birthdays. It's awesome. But when you achieve or you attain your desired age, whatever that might be, 30, 33, 35, 27, 36, I don't know what it is, but whatever your desired age is, stop. Do what Prince did. Stop celebrating birthdays. Stop counting the days. Live in the moment. That's manifesting youthfulness. And then if you are like me and you passed your desired age, you can do this. You can start celebrating reverse birthdays. So I'm going to be celebrating my first reverse birthday coming up here at the end of the summer. So celebrate those reverse birthdays. Take it back, and I'll celebrate until I reach my desired age. Now, if you really have the faith, you can do what the lovely woman I was speaking with last night does. You can speak your desired age into existence. So if you desire to be 35 again, speak it. I am 35. If you get questioned about it, okay, yeah, this is my government issued ID, or actually this person, I think she puts tape over it, which is awesome. But yeah, this is, government says this, but in our mortality years, right, I say this. This is my profession. I profess 35 years or 28 or whatever that number is. Profess it with your words. Speak it into existence. So those are 3 helpful tips about immortality. So I'm going to go ahead and end now. Thank you all for joining me. Again, this is Beto, your daily divinity coach. This was episode number 3, How to Manifest Immortality. Episode number 3 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival, here on Facebook Live every Sunday, beginning at 11:30 a.m. East Coast time, here where I'm at, on the East Coast or Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 a.m. on the West Coast Pacific Standard Time. So again, this concludes episode number 3 of my weekly series, Sunday Weekly Revival, here on Facebook Live. Beto here, your daily divinity coach. Thank you so much. Hope you join next week as well. Bye-bye.